You are lucky, you know. All you have to do every day is housework. As a full-time homemaker for a family of 5, my husband constantly hurls insults at me. He seems to think I'm just lazing around at home, not doing anything, and living an easy life. But that is far from the truth. I am in charge of everything in this house. When I glare at him with a stern look, my husband just smirks with even more contempt. What's with that look? You're living off me, and yet you're quite defiant. Parasites living an easy life should just listen to what I say. Parasite? How can he say something so insensitive? At those harsh words, tears of sadness and frustration spill from my eyes. Seeing my state, my husband sighs with annoyance. Oh, come on. A crying parasite? What a nuisance. My name is Hillary. I'm 28 years old. I married Tom, who is a year older than me, 2 years ago. After getting married, we moved in with Tom's parents. In addition to Tom's parents, his brother, who is around the same age as Tom, also lives with us, making it a household of 5. My living situation changed drastically after marriage, and although I was initially anxious, Tom's parents and brother are very kind people who treat me well. Despite often hearing negative opinions about living with a spouse's family, it doesn't apply to me at all, and we've built a good relationship. Now, as a full-time homemaker, I take on all the housework in this home. Before marriage, I worked at a company, but Tom's parents asked me to become a full-time homemaker, so I quit my job. I've always enjoyed cooking, and since my parents both worked, I often helped with the housework when I lived at my parents' house. Therefore, I happily accepted Tom's parents' suggestion and am now desperately managing the housework for 5 people. The house is large and there are many of us, so it's tough. But I also feel a great sense of fulfillment. Thanks to Hillary taking on the housework, I can focus on my work with peace of mind. I'm truly grateful. My mother-in-law often expresses her gratitude. While I feel a bit uncomfortable with my mother-in-law thanking me so much, she smiles and says, "It's natural to express gratitude because you're protecting the home when no one else is around." Before marrying Tom, I heard from him that his mother was very strict. My mom can be quite scary when she's angry. It's better to just follow along and not say anything strange, Tom advised me when we were newlyweds. However, when I'm doing housework and have questions, my mother-in-law kindly teaches me. Indeed, my mother-in-law is strict, but living with her, I've come to see her as a sincere and compassionate person who dislikes dishonesty. I deeply respect her, considering she used to manage the housework in between work before I moved in. This is because Tom's family runs a business. Tom's father is the president of the company, and his mother holds an important position there. Having started the company together, Tom's parents possess significant business skills and seem very busy every day. Yet, despite their busy schedules, they take turns doing the housework on their days off to care for me. Tom's brother and Tom himself also work at their father's company. Being a large corporation, my family is essentially a successful one. Tom's brother is good at his work and has a pleasant personality, and he often helps me with the housework. I truly feel blessed to have such a family. Since getting married, I've thought I live in an environment without any complaints. But there's just one issue I haven't been able to confide in anyone. That issue is my husband, Tom. Before we got married, Tom was as kind and dependable as the rest of the family. However, since we started living together after marriage, his attitude began to change gradually. One night, after coming out of the bath, Tom threw these words at me. "Hillary, I can't find the shirt I'm wearing tomorrow." "Where is it?" "Sorry, I haven't finished ironing it yet. I'll give it to you once I'm done." "Huh? Why didn't you do that during the day? You had time, didn't you?" Perhaps because no other family members were around, Tom clicked his tongue at me. I did feel bad about the delay in ironing the shirt, but I had been out shopping for groceries during the day and didn't have time. Even if I tried to explain, Tom probably wouldn't listen. Tom seems to think being a full-time homemaker means living an easy life at home. Therefore, he looks down on me for not working, and his attitude towards me has clearly changed since I became a full-time homemaker. However, Only Tom treats me with such disdain. Tom's parents and brother help me when I'm in trouble and express their gratitude, saying, "Thank you, always." The rest of the family naturally does these things. During these days, Tom began to make derogatory remarks about me being a full-time homemaker without the family noticing. It continued every day, and though I hoped he would come to understand, my wishes were in vain as things only got worse over time. One day, Tom came home early in the evening, claiming he had left work early, and started complaining after checking the state of the house. "Hey, you haven't even folded the laundry yet? You're always slow despite not working. What have you been doing all day? And heat the bath early. I'm tired from working all day. I've obviously been doing housework all day. That laundry is still drying, and preparing dinner is my top priority right now. Normally, the bath would be ready by the time you get home. It's only because you came back suddenly without notice today that I haven't started it yet." When I retorted, Tom snorted. "All day just for housework? How inefficient can you be? You've just been staying at home, haven't you? If you had cleaned the bath earlier, all you would need to do is fill it with water. How dare you speak so arrogantly?" I wish he would understand me a little, but Tom doesn't listen at all. Any counter-argument I make only comes back at me doubled, adding fuel to the fire. One day, as I endured Tom's ongoing criticisms while doing the housework, he came home from work apparently in a bad mood and, seeing me folding laundry by myself, clicked his tongue loudly. "You're lucky. All you have to do every day is the same housework. Whether something unpleasant happened at work or not." He took out his frustration on me. Knowing that talking back would only amplify Tom's anger, I continued folding the laundry in silence. Then, feeling ignored, Tom stomped over to where I was and kicked the folded laundry forcefully. "Hey, what are you doing?" As Tom shifted his gaze from the messed-up laundry to me, he snorted and laughed. "Is it really worth getting so angry about? Just fold them again. I'm not just sitting around with nothing to do. I have everything scheduled, like preparing dinner and heating the bath. With all the tasks I have, this throws off the whole schedule, doesn't it? Then you should just do it faster," Tom said coldly, looking down on me. When I glared at him sternly, my husband smirked with even more disdain. "What's with that look? You're living off me and yet you're quite defiant. Parasites living an easy life should just listen to what I say." "Parasite?" I was so taken aback by his rude words that I was at a loss for words. I couldn't understand how he could say something so insensitive. I had been called various things by Tom before, but being called a parasite was the last straw. Tears of sadness and anger spilled from my eyes. Seeing my state, my husband sighed with annoyance. "Oh, come on. A crying parasite? What a nuisance." As Tom was laughing at me with contempt, suddenly, the living room door swung open. When we looked towards the door, my mother-in-law entered with a furious expression. "Mom, welcome back." Tom, surprised, greeted her with a forced smile, but my mother-in-law glared at him with an unprecedented anger. "Tom, what did you do to Hillary?" I looked up at my mother-in-law while wiping away my tears. It seemed she had heard Tom's verbal abuse. Tom fell silent, trembling with a pale face. This was the first time I had seen my mother-in-law so angry. Indeed, Tom had told me before that his mother was strict and could be scarier than anyone when angry. Tom had always tried not to anger his mother, but this situation was unavoidable. As Tom looked down, trembling, his mother prompted him with a cold voice. "Can you hear me? Hillary is taking care of our home every day, and what did you say to her?" My mother-in-law continued, scolding Tom in a calm yet angry tone. Even I flinched at the intensity of her anger. This was the first time I had seen her so angry, and I was just shocked. "But she's not working, and she's just living off us. If she's not working, she should at least do the housework." Tom snapped back as if coming to his senses, yelling at me, "What's wrong with calling her a parasite?" Hearing the word parasite again, tears welled up in my eyes. Seeing my state, my mother-in-law was outraged and scolded Tom, "Stop it. Hillary being a full-time homemaker was our request. She could have continued working, but she quit her job for us. Do you realize how grateful we should be for her to move in and live with her husband's family right after quitting her job? We once hired a housekeeping service when you were in elementary school, remember? But when we asked them to do everything, it ended up costing a fortune. Hillary is doing all those difficult tasks every day without a day off and without pay. Because Hillary takes care of the house, we can focus on our business. How can you not understand that? Despite my mother-in-law's attempt to reason, Tom refused to understand. It seems he thinks I'm just idle passing time at home. How can I make him understand? While I was pondering this, Tom's father and brother also returned from work. It seems they heard the scolding voice of my mother-in-law at the entrance and were surprised by the scene unfolding in the living room, with Tom's father asking, "What happened? Hillary, were you crying? Tell us what happened." Tom's brother spoke to me and patted my back. When my mother-in-law explained the situation, both Tom's father and brother became furious upon learning of the events. Even when confronted by 3 family members, Tom raised his voice, seemingly unable to accept it. Why? Why is everyone taking her side? Tom, enough. You don't understand Hillary's struggles at all. Even Tom's usually quiet and reserved father scolded him. Despite his father's anger, Tom remained undeterred. Anyone can do housework, right? There are plenty of women who work and do housework in this day and age. Why is she getting special treatment? Then, my mother-in-law's expression hardened and she gave Tom a cold look. You really don't get it. From now on, you'll do everything for yourself. What? Tom was taken aback by his mother's command. I was also speechless. But then my mother-in-law turned to me with a smile. Hillary, from now on, you don't have to worry about Tom. Don't prepare his meals, do his laundry, or anything else for him, she said, pointing at Tom with a smile. As I was bewildered, Tom's brother agreed. That's right. Let him experience the hardships you've been through. Tom protested. That's just going to make her lazier. It's unfair, but his father shouted, silence. If you think it's unfair, then show us an example. Work and then come home and manage the housework properly. Then, we'll consider asking Hillary to work as well. My mother-in-law continued with an attitude that left no room for rebuttal. Perhaps overwhelmed by the pressure from the 3, Tom reluctantly accepted his mother's directive. Since then, I've been doing the household chores for everyone except Tom. Tom, it seemed, had his pride. At first, he awkwardly managed the housework with a show of confidence. It was the first time I saw him doing housework, and I was surprised. I thought, he can do it if he tries. When cooking, he looked confused at times, but I did not offer my help. Tom's attitude suggested he didn't need my assistance. Sometimes he seemed dissatisfied with his own cooking, possibly because it wasn't very tasty. Watching him, I suddenly remembered how Tom used to enjoy the meals I cooked before we were married. Lately, he hasn't complimented my cooking, leaving me feeling a bit sad. Then, one weekday night, damn, I forgot to iron. After taking a bath and getting ready for bed, Tom muttered in frustration while holding a wrinkled shirt. He glanced at me briefly, but I deliberately ignored it. I'm tired, so I'm going to bed first. Good night. I thought to myself it might seem cold, but lending a hand now wouldn't change anything. Afterward, Tom managed to keep up with the housework for a while under the watchful eyes of his mother and the rest of the family. However, it seems he couldn't keep it up for more than a few weeks and finally reached his limit. Hillary, sorry, I need help, he pleaded with me in a wary voice. Though Tom had been putting on a brave face, it was clear that after working hard from morning till evening every day, he had no energy left for housework. Moreover, he seemed to think that housework was just about preparing meals, doing the laundry, and occasionally cleaning, neglecting the finer details like ironing shirts and taking care of bags and shoes. It appeared he finally realized that the housework he thought was simple actually took up a significant amount of time. I finally understand that you were always taking care of me in many ways, Tom murmured weakly. Because I took care of his surroundings. He was always able to present himself cleanly and focus at work, something he finally appreciated. I was thinking about hiring a housekeeping service because it was too hard. But then I realized how expensive that would be. I now painfully understand what Mom meant when she said you are taking care of our home, Tom said with an almost tearful expression. The housework I do isn't just about cooking for 5 people, doing laundry, or cleaning. It includes taking care of each person's commuting bags, shoes, watches, and preparing higher quality suits for important business meetings, among other things beyond ordinary chores. Also, organizing and categorizing the myriad of contacts from relatives, friends, and classmates to maintain the image of a successful business family is part of my job. This is why Tom's parents couldn't just hire a housekeeping service. Having strangers see potentially sensitive company documents was a concern. In this respect, I am a family member and don't cost anything. That's why they pleaded with me to take care of everyone in the household as a full-time homemaker, offering to give me a generous allowance for living expenses. Tom deeply apologized to me. I'm really sorry for all the terrible things I've said. I really am sorry. I want to eat your cooking again, Hillary. Receiving Tom's sincere apology, I finally smiled back. It seems you've learned your lesson well. Then, I heard my mother-in-law's voice and looked over. Tom's parents and brother were standing at the door, looking at us with a mix of astonishment and bemusement. My mother-in-law shrugged her shoulders and addressed Tom. Just as Hillary has supported you, from now on, you should also support Hillary. Both work and housework are important, and you shouldn't act arrogantly or look down on your partner. Tom, looking bewildered at first, took her words to heart and nodded earnestly. Since reconciling with Tom, I have been diligently managing the household chores to support my family. Tom, no longer displaying any contemptuous attitude towards me, said, "We have days off from the company, but Hillary doesn't. Isn't that unfair?" He began helping with housework actively so that I would be able to have days off as well. Thanks to this, I've had more personal time for shopping, watching movies, and relaxing. Recently, I went out for lunch with my mother-in-law, enjoying a wonderful time together. Our relationship has deepened through this incident, and we're even planning a girls' trip, leaving the housework to the men next time. It'll surely be a meaningful trip, and I'm excited like a child. Despite my worries at one point, I'm grateful to be blessed with such a wonderful family. Do you really want this old house? It's a shame that after all the hard work and caregiving you have done, all you get is this old house. Despite inheriting a valuable house where I've lived for many years from my grandmother, my brother's wife laughed at it. It might be old, but it's a house filled with precious memories. However, she didn't seem to understand that. With such an attitude, she might someday lose or damage something important. I'm Claire. I'm 28 years old and unmarried. Currently, I'm taking care of my grandmother, who is ill, while living in her house with my mother. I have a married brother, but since he found it difficult to support our grandmother, I took on the role. Although my mother is also around, she's old and finds caregiving difficult. So I'm the primary caregiver for my grandmother. When we were little, our mother got divorced and worked hard to raise us. As a result, my brother and I were mainly raised by our grandmother. I can't abandon her after all she has done for us. Moreover, I am single and have a flexible schedule due to my ability to work from home. My brother's wife doesn't seem very interested in taking care of our family, so I was the most appropriate person to take on this role. Caregiving is challenging. I continue to do it daily as a way of showing gratitude to my beloved grandmother. My days with my grandmother are full of enjoyment, and I don't feel any hardship. However, recently, I've been feeling stressed about something else. It's about the attitude of my brother's wife. My brother does recognize the support he received from our grandmother, and although he can't be involved in her actual care, he often visits us to check on things. But his wife's behavior and words during these visits irritate me. Are you cleaning properly? Look, this room. You haven't cleaned it, have you? Since you're relying on grandma, make sure you do your part. My brother's wife, to put it positively, is the type to speak her mind out. But from my perspective, she's unpleasant and rude. She visits our house, criticizes me with such an attitude, and often makes sarcastic remarks. I've let a lot of things slide, but the phrase freeloader is hard to accept. Indeed, I am staying at my grandmother's house, but I earn my own living expenses. I receive no financial support from my brother. Yet, his wife accuses me of having an easy life at my grandmother's house. It's incomprehensible to be criticized by her, who doesn't understand the difficulty of working while managing the house and caregiving. I am legitimately working and supporting myself with my income. I haven't touched any of my grandmother's assets. Even when I explained these points to my brother's wife, she ignored my words and provoked me by saying, "Even so, the reason you're caregiving is that you don't have to pay rent, right? Instead of relying on your parents, you're relying on your grandmother, aren't you?" Stress was piling up from dealing with my brother's wife. However, I also feel tired every day, and I don't have the energy to deal with her. Knowing that whatever I say would be met with negative responses, I gradually began to ignore her sarcasm. Then she would say, "Oh, you're not talking back? Does your silence mean you agree?" Whether I respond to her or not, my brother's wife, who frequently picks on me, leaves me in disbelief. To be honest, I want to ask my brother not to bring her along, but she's cunning and behaves as such. She never says anything bad to me in front of my brother. The unpleasant words are always thrown at me when it's just her and me. Therefore, my brother, unaware of her true nature, always brings her to our grandmother's house. I did try to have a light conversation about it, but it ended with, "She wouldn't say such awful things, right? Are you bullying my wife? Nobody likes an annoying sister-in-law. She's making a special effort to get along with you. Try to be friendly." He always took his wife's side. Talking to him only made things worse. Realizing that I couldn't rely on my brother, I decided it was best to have as little to do with his wife as possible. While harboring such feelings, one day, my grandmother's condition suddenly worsened, and she needed to be hospitalized. My brother was busy with work and couldn't find time to visit the hospital. As a result, my mother and I ended up taking care of my grandmother. My mother's health wasn't good either due to past overwork, so it was difficult for her to go to the hospital every day. Therefore, I was the one who went to the hospital daily, checking on and caring for my grandmother. After a month of such a life, my grandmother quietly passed away. It was sudden, but I was somewhat prepared, knowing her condition was serious. However, it was difficult for me to accept her death, having spent my childhood with her and being with her until her last moment. While devastated by this harsh reality, I informed my mother and brother of our grandmother's death. Then, unexpectedly, my brother's wife came to see me. My brother was delayed due to work reasons, so his wife came to me first. Could it be that she was concerned about me in such a situation? I couldn't believe it given her past attitude, but I thought for a moment that she might have some humanity. While feeling grateful for her visit, I expressed my thanks, but her response was unexpected. "If you have time to grieve, hurry up and finish the funeral and inheritance procedures. Unlike you, your brother's busy with work. Don't give us any extra trouble." Instead of a warm-hearted sentiment or comfort, she seemed to have come to urge the progression of the inheritance and funeral arrangements. Of course, this is the kind of person she is. I was surprised to find out again that my brother's wife was such a heartless and self-centered person. Despite my grief, she started to rush the funeral arrangements. I certainly appreciated the fact that she came to help in place of my brother, but I wasn't in a position to be ordered around by her. especially when she has been keeping her distance from our family until now. Though I felt dissatisfactions in my heart, I continued to endure, not wanting to cause a conflict right after my grandmother's death. When my brother finally appeared, his wife quieted down for a while. However, as soon as she was out of his sight, her usual sarcasms toward me didn't stop. Amidst my desire to properly process my grandmother's passing, her behavior infuriated me. Additionally, she had a talent for making insensitive remarks. Your grandmother lived too long. Did she end up using all her assets? After all that, how much inheritance will we get? Even before the funeral was over, she was already worried about money. My patience couldn't withstand this. Is that what you would be thinking right after someone's death? Please stop it. I finally raised my voice, and she seemed a bit surprised too. Nevertheless, there's a difference between things that should be said and things that shouldn't. Normally, she would have retorted, but this time, she didn't respond and just left the scene. Later, perhaps realizing she had gone too far, she avoided interacting with me, and the funeral was completed peacefully. At that point, my mental state also began to stabilize. I hadn't completely overcome the shock, but I vowed in my heart that it was pointless to dwell on the past. I returned to the house where I had lived with my grandmother and began to sort through her belongings alone. While organizing what inheritance should be claimed and what needed to be dealt with, my brother and his wife visited. I'll help to sort out her belongings, my brother offered. There were many items, so I was grateful for the help. However, his wife, yet again, focused only on discussing assets and money. While sorting through our grandmother's belongings, it might be understandable to discuss inheritance. I didn't argue with her at that time, but even my brother seemed slightly puzzled by her attitude. As we continued to sort out her things and progressed with the inheritance procedures, it became clear that what our grandmother left behind was her house and some money. At that moment, my brother's wife quickly said, "We'll take the money. This house isn't suitable as a place for us to live, so you should inherit the house and take care of it." Perhaps the house, clearly showing its age, didn't appear valuable in her eyes. I sensed from her attitude that choosing money was more beneficial to her. My brother seemed slightly perplexed by her argument but ultimately chose money over the house. Understanding their intentions, I calmly decided to inherit the house. As the conversation wound down, my brother and his wife began preparing to leave. "Thanks for helping out," I said as I saw them off at the entrance. Just as they were leaving, my brother's wife whispered in my ear, "What a pity that only this old house was left. Haha. Smart, so I got that cash. Was taking care of your grandmother even worth it?" She left with these sarcastic words. She looked down on me until the very end. I vowed in my heart that day I could not forgive her. No matter what happens, I will never forgive her. In the following months, I continued to live with my mother in the same house. It felt quiet without my grandmother. On a particular day, my mother was away on a trip with her friends, which added to the stillness within the house. As dinner time approached and I was about to head to the kitchen, the doorbell rang. Who all'd it be? With that question in mind, I headed to the entrance, where I found my brother's wife standing alone. My brother was not there. She had come alone. "Good evening. Is something wrong?" I asked in surprise, opening the door to find her already stepping inside. "Hey, why did you keep it a secret? This house is amazing," she exclaimed loudly, inspecting every corner of the room. "You're really calculating, aren't you? You knew this would happen. That's why you chose to inherit the house." Her words were always laced with criticism towards me. Perhaps she was surprised by the transformation of my grandmother's house. From that surprise, she directed her grievances at me. In truth, after my grandmother passed away, I earnestly renovated the house. Recently, More and more people have been customizing and renovating homes themselves. I was also interested in this trend and, though a beginner, decided to give it a try. Fortunately, a friend who worked in construction lived nearby. With his support, I was able to finish the house to my liking. This house was something my grandmother was proud of. When she was alive, she used to say with a smile, "Grandpa was particular, so the carpenter chose and used good quality wood for this house." My grandfather had a particular preference for wood, and his acquaintances at the construction company were highly praised for their skills. I respected my grandparents' wishes and went on to renovate the house. The renovated house looked like luxurious accommodation. While incorporating modern design, it maintained the presence of my grandparents. This house, which my grandmother cherished, also became a valuable place for me. Hearing about it, my brother's wife suddenly came to visit. After looking around the house, she made an unexpected remark. "You have a great taste to renovate the house like this. We'll take this house as our inheritance." Wasn't the inheritance issue already settled? Now, she's suddenly demanding to inherit the house? I struggled to understand what she was saying. Surprised, I couldn't respond to her. She then said assertively, "Listen, we've decided. We'll exchange our current house for this house. This house will be my husband's inheritance. You agree, right?" She was pressuring me as usual. "There shouldn't be any objections because it's an exchange," she insisted. "We'll start moving immediately. Sort out your belongings and leave soon." My brother's wife repeatedly said to leave as if she had gone mad. I reiterated the facts about the inheritance, but she seemed to intentionally ignore them. Her determination was clear. She wouldn't budge no matter how much I tried to persuade her. She believed that not yielding would make her point. It was obvious that arguing with her was pointless. Deciding that further dialogue was impossible, I chose to temporarily retreat. "Understood. Then, I'll leave this house." After conveying this to her, I started organizing my things. "You finally understand. Please hurry." Relieved that I was complying with her, she smiled at me. Ignoring her smug expression, I pretended to collect my belongings and walked to the garden shed. From there, I took the tools used during the renovation and headed back inside where my brother's wife was waiting. Seeing me holding the tools, she was momentarily surprised, but soon urged me to hurry. "You can move those tools later. Just clear the room for now." Responding to her, I said, "I understand. I simply needed these to collect my personal belongings," and slammed the tools into the large living room wall. My sister-in-law looked shocked, unable to grasp what was happening. Ignoring her astonishment, I began removing the wall materials. Ah! At that moment, my brother's wife screamed in shock. Seeing me destroying the house, she attacked me in fear, raising her voice. "Wait, you! What are you planning? What are you trying to do?" She raised her voice, desperate to stop what I was doing. While holding her back with the tool, I explained, "All the materials for the house renovation were paid for by me. They are my belongings, so I will collect them all." "That's not what I meant. Stop the destruction." She continued to raise her voice but didn't come closer to me. Ignoring her cries, I continued to strip off the wall components. As I was about to start working on the floor with my tools raised, my brother appeared. I had called him immediately when I had left my sister-in-law alone to fetch the tools. "What's going on?" I could hear loud voices from all the way outside. Entering the room, my brother was astonished to see the state of the living room. What happened to both of you?" He must have been greatly surprised to see the damaged room, me holding a tool, and his wife crying next to him. She then told him what had happened rapidly. "This person is dangerous." It was natural for him to feel suspicious of me under these circumstances. However, my sister-in-law was the reason I behaved like this. I calmly told my brother about how she suddenly came today and told me to leave the house. But I didn't expect the house to be renovated, so I can't accept the fact that it was inherited in a secretive way. That's unfair. Therefore, she should leave and we should live here. Hearing my words, she started to make incomprehensible comments in front of my brother. Listening to her contradictory comments, my brother fully supported me. We agreed that my sister would inherit the house, and we would receive money as an inheritance, right? Isn't the handling of this house my sister's right? My brother cornered his wife. As a result, she felt isolated and became emotional. And then she took an extreme stance. Why aren't you taking my side? If you won't do that, then I will end our marriage. Indeed, there's no point in continuing a marriage with someone who doesn't accept their mistakes and refuses to apologize. My sister-in-law, trying to forcibly pull my brother to her side with the choice of divorce, was met with his agreement, and she was at a loss for words. From then on, my brother took control. What if my sister claims that the following is unfair? What if we use the inherited money for investments and the money we obtained increased? How would you respond if she accused us of being unfair? My brother posed such a question to his wife. There's no way I'd concede. We're the ones who invested it, and we haven't violated anything. My brother's wife emotionally responded to my brother's hypothetical scenario. Receiving her reaction, my brother spoke softly as if to guide her. Do you really think so? But what you're arguing is the same thing. This residence is old, and my sister used her own funds to renovate it and increase its value. After inheriting it, she just changed it according to her own wishes. There's no issue. My brother said so and apologized to me. Sitting next to him, he appealed to his wife to apologize to me. Perhaps realizing her mistake through my brother's metaphor, she also apologized with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry for causing such a commotion. Of course, there are many things I want to point out, but for now, I'll take care of her. I sincerely apologize. After that, my brother left the house quietly with his calmed-down wife. Though it was somewhat forceful, I was able to protect the house I had shared with my grandmother, and as I saw my brother and his wife, I spoke to my grandmother in heaven. I got a bit too excited and damaged your beloved house, Grandma. I'll touch it up until it's beautiful again, so please forgive me, Grandma. I'll take good care of this house from now on. Thank you, my dear. It felt as if I received a reply from my grandmother. My grandmother's photo that was displayed in the house seemed to be smiling faintly. Eventually, my brother chose the path of divorce. It became clear that what I said about her past attitudes and words toward me were true, and it seemed he also judged it would be difficult to keep living together. She probably wouldn't change. My brother hinted with a smile that perhaps our grandmother had given him some advice. As for me, I rebuilt the damaged house with my own hands. The repair costs were claimed by my brother to take responsibility for his ex-wife's mistakes. Seeing the state of the house, a friend who works at a construction company teased, that was a bold move. In truth, the color of the living room walls was something I intended to renovate someday. I wasn't completely satisfied with it. Despite some difficulties, I am now content with the results. From now on, I hope to reflect on the past memories in this house and build new memories and experiences.